Well, was that the worst game of the year for the Pittsburgh Penguins? I think that might have to qualify. You're going to get all the facts from me in this one. This is not going to be a very positive centric episode. I will warn you all right now before I hit the drop. We're going to recap this, the best I can. I'm going to be as objective as I usually am. And, I got all my notes here, and let's just get right into it. Here comes a full recap episode of this awful loss by the Penguins to the Oilers tonight right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter, LO_Penguins. If you are listening to this episode, just know I love you. I don't know how you're going to go out of your way to listen to an episode where I am about to just lay into the team for everything that happened tonight. And, just been season-long issues, month-long issues. Nobody is safe tonight. That includes Sidney Crosby. That includes Mike Sullivan. That includes everyone in the Penguins organization right now. What that 2.5 hours just was, it was humiliating, embarrassing, disgusting, flat out just awful by the Penguins. I get very 2015 vibes when I've been watching them lately, and that's not good. I mean, remember, they had Chris Letang go down just a few games before the playoffs. They weren't playing well going into that, and they lost in 5 games. They had a tied 1-1 series against the Rangers going back to PPG Paints Arena, and then they lost the last 3 games. And then there were some serious changes made, and obviously the Penguins went on to win a couple cups in a row. But I don't see that happening here. That's to say the least. I've been an optimist all year. You've heard me on this podcast say numerous times, you guys are all returning listeners, this team's a contender. They're going to be fine. They're going to figure this out. I remember after that loss in Denver, I said, what, they're going to continue to play like this in the month of April. They should have gotten a point or maybe even a win out of that game. I wasn't concerned. Ever since then, though, this has just been a downward slide by the Penguins that I didn't see coming. Everything has gone wrong. The power play's in a 2 for 26 funk. The penalty kill has gone down a little bit. The goaltending hasn't been as good. The 5v5 play hasn't been good. They're getting outskated on a nightly basis. At this point, the net front play has been awful. Reared its ugly head again tonight on a couple goals. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for the Penguins. And you know what? For tonight's game especially, it all started at the morning skate. And, some of you may be like, well, you got to give those lines a shot. Maybe what if they would have won the game? And I'm like, with those kind of lines, my confidence went down. And sure enough, when you put Brock McGinn and, friend of the show, great person. But when you're playing him in the top 6 and you're making changes for the sake of making changes, what's the point? Sure, you lost a bad game in Philadelphia, whatever. Second half of a back-to-back. Keep your top 6 intact. I don't understand it. And you're going to put Jason Zucker, I know he got hurt again tonight, with a worse center in Jeff Carter, who is not having a good year ever since, he started those first 10 to 20 games. And of course, he was rewarded with an extension that continues to look worse and worse. I'm probably going to get to that a little bit later on in this episode. But, it all just reeks again of, I'm going to do something for the sake of it. I'm going to throw crap at the wall and hope that it sticks. And that was part of it. McGinn, I know he has 12 goals this year, but, even strength-wise, offensively, he sucks the life out of offense. I don't know why Mike Sullivan wanted to put him with Evgeny Malkin. I understand you want to get Gino going. His 5v5 play, I think, has been mainly fine, but still, it's not up to his usual standards. But you keep Jason Zucker in that spot, and, maybe if you want to put Raquel down there and move Brian Rust up, I think I'd be maybe a little more okay with that. I still disagreed with moving Raquel off the Crosby line. That line's been, their best line for the last week or two, ever since Rickard Raquel came over, and they started off with some shifts on the said line before they, eventually made it a little bit of a full-time thing. It's been one of the best lines in hockey, and to just abandon that after a few games, I don't get it, to say the least. These lines were not it. Kasperi Kapanen tonight, he was on the third line. He's basically unplayable at this point in the third period. Just made brutal passes up to the point, side to side. No one was in the area. He's got to be benched. He is doing nothing right now to warrant having played on the roster. I would put Brian Boyle over him at this point. And, I didn't think I'd be saying that, but, with how bad Kapanen was tonight, he hasn't earned his ice time. At the end of the day, that is how it is. He has not earned his ice time. Sorry. I mean, that's just that's how I see it. There's another issue that was very, it reared its ugly head again tonight as well. And again, the Penguins, they get back in the game, they tie it, everything's looking better again. It's finally a game, who knows what happens. Not 30 seconds later, 25 seconds later, Oilers come back. Evander Kane gets his 22nd of the year. And it's like, this has been a recurring problem for the last few months. And I'm going to pull up a stat here. It's funny. My uncle Kenny, if he ever listens to this podcast, thank you for sending me this. This goes back to March 11th. They played Vegas. 103 seconds after the Penguins scored, Vegas got a goal. Carolina, 14 seconds after the Penguins scored, they gave up a goal. Nashville, a minute and a half after the Penguins scored, they gave up a goal. April 2nd, twice against the Avalanche. Within 30 seconds, they gave up a goal the other way. And actually, I could say on April 5th against the Avs, this one was in Pittsburgh, 31 seconds later. Against the Capitals, 16 seconds later after the Penguins scored to go up 1-0 very early on, they gave up another goal. Islanders, 53 seconds. Red Wings, 78 seconds. Philadelphia, 59 seconds. Edmonton tonight, 25 seconds. I know a couple of those were empty netters, but that has been a very big issue for the Penguins all month long. It has not changed. And if they're going to play like this in the playoffs, they are going to get swept. That's the reality of the situation. I try to be an optimist as much as I can. I try to be as level-headed as I can on this show for you all. But with how this team is playing and just the vibe I'm getting, they don't have it this year. It looks like, honestly, it's the end of a near 20-year run. That's how I see it. The team that I saw in December, January, February, hell, even a lot of March, it's non-existent right now. This team that I am watching for this last month, it's not the team I saw for 8 to 10 to 12 weeks early on in the season. They are a shell of their former selves right now. There was no pushback at all against the Oilers tonight. It looked like there was no loyalty, no spirit, no heart, anything like that. And I try not to bring up those intangibles a lot on this podcast. Some of those is overrated, but it looks like a team that was just skating in mud all game long. And, that ain't going to work. No matter if they play the Rangers or the Panthers next week, it's a 50-50 shot. At this point, who the Penguins are going to play, the Capitals did lose tonight 4-1 to the Islanders. And if the Capitals lose again to the Islanders on Thursday, all the Penguins need to do on Friday is beat the Blue Jackets at home, and they will play the Rangers in the first one. Otherwise, if Washington wins their last two games, it'll be Capitals, Rangers, and Penguins, Panthers. But just a total lackluster effort. I'm going to dive deep into the goals that were scored by the Oilers in the second segment, but I really just had to rant for this first segment. This was the loss that really, I think, has turned me to the other side that this is not the Penguins' year. I know, again, I said for a long time that this team is a contender and it's all going to be fine. But, right now, I would love for them to prove me wrong. I don't see it. That's me, though. That's how I see it. So I know my rant was maybe a little all over the place, but I tried to put my thoughts together and, be as clear as I can for you all and what I am seeing and what I am watching with this team. It's just, they are a very hard watch right now, to say the least. Coming up in the second segment, I'm going to go over the goals that were scored against the Penguins and, what needs to change for that heading into the playoffs. Before I get to that, though, let's get to HelloFresh. You get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients with HelloFresh and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. It's all about convenience with HelloFresh. Not only do the ingredients come pre-portioned so you're not overbuying or wasting food, but it's easier than ever to get filling meals on the table and a snap with options like family-friendly or quick and easy recipes. Ingredients travel from the farm to your doorstep in under a week, so they always arrive fresh, all without a trip to the grocery store or farmer's market. HelloFresh has fit and wholesome recipes for satisfying and nutritious meals that you can feel good about, with 6 recipes per week to choose from, including low-calorie and carb-conscious options. You go to HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16. Use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Again, it saves me a lot of time by not having to go to a grocery store every week. It also saves me quite a bit of money as well. So again, HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So the goals that were scored tonight, let's break them all down here. First one, I personally think Casey DeSmith should have had that. He really wasn't screened too hard on that Bouchard one. It went glove side, and people are always going to say the glove side in quotation marks, but it looked like he saw it all the way to me. I think, if he's able to make that save, maybe the game turns out different, probably not, but it's at least a different dynamic. Second one, again, Jeff Carter ties the game after not having a good game. Crowd's back into it. Penguins have the momentum. They're pushing a little bit. 25 seconds later, Brock McGinn gets toasted by Connor McDavid. No clue why he's on the ice against him. And then Evander Kane's able to finish off a chance because all the Penguin skaters are standing flat in the defensive zone. And that's a trend as well that I've been noticing a lot lately. I don't know why the team defense has fallen off a cliff like this. I think a good part of it has to do with their play in the neutral zone. Whenever the puck gets, into the defensive zone, the skaters they're skating in mud and they're not moving their feet. And they're also failing to get the puck out on a lot of clear attempts. I was noticing that a lot tonight too. The Penguins would have the puck on their stick in the defensive zone, and numerous times they're not able to get the puck out. They're doing these heave and pray plays, that I like to call them, where you're praying to God that an Oiler is not one of the opposing players. I cannot speak tonight. Jesus Christ. One of the opposing players is not jumping up and putting the puck down back in the offensive zone, or pinning the puck against the glass and then dumping it around. And that was killing the Penguins a lot tonight. Again, especially on that first goal. They had multiple attempts to get the puck out before Bouchard scored, and what Jeff Carter was on the ice for that one. He's been playing a lot of third line minutes lately. He cannot keep playing those. That's for sure. I would honestly put Teddy Blueger up there. Just to send a message. I think he's been playing better than Carter at this point. I understand Carter scored tonight, but, had he not scored that goal, this was probably one of his worst goals of the year. And again, need I not remind you that he's still signed for 2 more years after this, and his play is continuing to dip pretty far at this point. Yeah, it's just looking like a really bad contract right now for Ron Exton. I was fine with it. I was fine with it at the time because he was playing good. That's the thing. His points per 60 was actually decent league wide. He was producing defensively. He was not bad. Now he's just getting cratered on a nightly basis at this point, and his age is really starting to show. I think this was the player that everyone was expecting the Penguins were going to get last year, and then obviously Carter goes on that massive heater. Starts out the year playing really well too, and then since then he's not been the same player. That's for sure. So again, going back to the second goal too, just really bad team defense. Everyone is just standing still. There's no communication. It looks like it pucks in the back of the net. Third period, Oilers make it 3-1. There's nothing doing defensively in that zone. Zach Hyman gets an easy rebound. There's Chad Ruedel and Chris Letang are right in front of Casey DeSmith. They have outmanned 2-1 with Hyman down there. And you're telling me you can't, get Hyman out of the way so he doesn't put the Oilers up 3-1. Just the net front problems continue to be a problem for the Penguins. I touched on this on my Monday episode when I was talking about the Flyers game. When Noah Cates of all people is scoring 2 goals against you right in front of the net with deflections, what is going to happen when you have to play one of Chris Kreider or Patrick Hornquist in the first round of playoffs? They are going to eat this team alive. One of those two at least will in a 7-game series. And it's not going to be pretty. That's for damn sure. I am very concerned about that aspect for the playoffs for the Penguins. The fourth one, Connor McDavid, what a shot. I mean, that's just ridiculous by him. Casey DeSmith made himself, I think, way too low in that net. And, DeSmith tonight, I'm not really going to blame him too much, but, I would have liked to see a couple more saves. But, the overarching thing, and I saw this on the timeline, and it's hard not to argue this. Wouldn't it be better right now with a 1B goaltender? I'm not going to sit here and say they should have gotten one at the trade deadline. I think that's, totally, I think it's irresponsible to say. But there were some available over the offseason. And, one of my good buddies, Jason from Penguins Twitter, for those that are not on social media, Reimer only signed for $2.25 million per. I hate to say this. Brock McGinn, love him, friend of the show, has 12 goals this year, but hasn't brought a lot of offense outside that. I mean, it's $500K more he's making. You could have given that 2.25. You could have given his contract to James Reimers. And, potentially, we're singing a different tune right now, if they're getting, maybe a little bit of better goaltending, because the goaltending, down the stretch, I know DeSmith has played, mostly fine, but, Tristan Jarry, he wasn't able to get the time off that he needed. And, now he's banged up and he had to play way too much early on because DeSmith was not playing well. They didn't have a reliable backup at the time, and they got lucky that he turned his game around a little bit. But, it still frightens me that going into the playoffs, most likely, Tristan Jarry is not going to be healthy. He hasn't even started to skate yet. It's been almost 2 weeks since he broke his foot. And there's no chance that he's going to be ready for game 1, unless he just pulls a miracle out of a hat here. And the Penguins are going to have to go in here riding Casey DeSmith and their coattails on him. So it's just something that I'm very much worried about, to say the least. But, again, the Penguins' defensive issues continue to just plague the team. And again, there are so many moments where the Penguins were just coughing up the puck numerous times, both in the defensive zone, the neutral zone, heck, even in the offensive zone when the Penguins had the puck, passing it to nowhere. Evgeny Malkin had so many egregious passes tonight. It was probably one of his worst games of the season. I think he's had. It was just nothing was working for him. Again, I partly say that having Brock McGinn on his line is not good. It's never been a good thing. I would like to see Mike Sullivan change that going into the final game of the regular season against Columbus. But, we'll see at this point. The lone goal was scored by Jeff Carter. It was a nice, bounce off the end boards. He's almost at 20 now for the season. So nice for him to get that. But, that's really the only good thing I guess I can say about this game. Maybe other than Chad Ruedel really starting to gain more confidence in his play. I really like how he's continuing to jump into the play offensively a lot more. But I'm sorry, guys. I just don't have the vibes right now. I haven't felt this somber about the Penguins since the 2014-15 season. It seems like this is truly the end of a near 20-year run by this team and this core. I would love to be proven wrong, but my confidence is cratered. Nothing's been fixed. The finishing hasn't regressed. They didn't replace Jared McCann when they decided to trade him. I still think that's haunting the Penguins. Imagine if they protected him and not Kasperi Kapanen with how he's playing right now. Season potentially looks a lot different, especially with how McCann has played, the contract he signed. I think that's a decision that's going to haunt Ron Hextall and Brian Burke for years to come. That's for sure. And again, not getting a goaltender over the offseason to help Tristan Jarry, I think, is going to, really bite this team in the playoffs. And, I also think going into next year, I know it's maybe a little too early to say this, they're going to have to go out and get another defenseman that can move the puck and is a bit more offensive. Chris Letang, even if he is back, he's great, but he's not going to play like at this level for this much longer. Mike Matheson's great. But after that, you have players that don't bring a lot of offense. I mean, Pedersen's a good defensive defenseman. John Marino's offensive game is never going to come out, I think, at this point. Chad Ruedel has been better at activating himself, but he's still mainly a defensive defenseman. Brian Dumoulin looks cooked. You might have to go out and get a top 4 guy. And you might have to pay up to get one too. And there's just I feel like right now there's so many holes that are plaguing this team that are really coming to life. And, I was definitely ignoring them early on in the season when the team was looking like a contender because it looked like the Penguins were going to be able to get by those shortcomings. But right now, when everything just comes to a head, it looks bad, to say the least. Still a little more to get to for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Before I get to that, though, you can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a Italian business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. You can go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. You can go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car, truck, and you can write Locked On in their How to Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That is rockauto.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. I'm stuttering very bad there. I very much apologize for that. I feel like I've said almost everything I've wanted to say with this episode. But I did want to get to some of the underlying numbers tonight from the lines, at least that we saw. So let's take a look at it here. So the McGinn, Malkin, Raquel line, 28% of the shot attempts at even strength, 80% of the scoring chances, so a little bit better there, 79% of the expected goals, but they still got out attempted due to oblivion. The Heinen, Carter, Kapanen line was really bad. They had 10% of the expected goals. They had 11% of the shot attempts. Scoring chances wise, they had 25% of those. I never want to see that third line again. Dan Heinen is a much better player than people give him credit for. He should not be playing with Jeff Carter and Kasperi Kapanen again. Kasperi Kapanen should not even be in the lineup right now. I have had enough of him with how he's playing. He needs to be scratched for Game 82 and probably for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Gensel, Crosby, Russ line was on ice for 54% of the shot attempts, but only had an expected goals rate of 14%, 38% of the scoring chances for. You will not see that again from Sidney Crosby. I think he's going to take that very personally going into the last game of the season and into the playoffs. He's going to be pissed after this because you don't usually see his line, even with when Brian Russ is on it, get stifled like that. No matter who they play in the playoffs, whether it's the Rangers or the Panthers, he is going to be absolutely livid. And it's very weird that of all teams, the Oilers are going to shut them down because the Oilers are not known for being a good defensive team. I mean, their defensive corps they're terrible. I mean, they were down Darnell Nurse tonight. Oscar Klefbom's out for the year. I mean, their best defenseman tonight is basically Evan Bouchard, and he's a second pairing guy. Cody Ceci, Duncan Keith, Chris Russell. I mean, the fact that you're only scoring one goal on those defensemen, it's pretty embarrassing, to say the least. So I definitely think, and I would hope that the forward lines are definitely switched going into the next game. The defensive lines, I don't think defensive pairings, I don't think they're going to change them that much. I don't really think they need to do anything there. But there's one more game here. I said these last 5 games are going to tell me a lot, and they have so far. The first 2 looked good. I said, okay, maybe things are going back in the right direction. I said after the Flyers lost, okay, what if it turns around again on Tuesday? And boy, was I wrong. Right now, everything's telling me that this team is going to either get swept in the first round or, lose in 5 games. Nothing is going right for them right now. Again, if you prefer one matchup or the other, if the Capitals win their last 2 games, they will play the Rangers. The Penguins will play the Panthers. If the Capitals lose on Thursday, all the Penguins have to do on Friday is either win against the Blue Jackets or the Capitals lose no matter what. That's the situation there for the Penguins. I was very surprised. I think that Mike Sullivan did not really say much to the media after the game. He didn't really lay into the team. I guess he has some sort of loyalty to this group. Though I did see a report from Jesse Marshall during the game. Someone asked him, how concerned are you about the team right now? He said about 7.7. And then I think someone else asked him, do you think Mike Sullivan is back next year? And Jesse had a very interesting answer where he said, I don't know what the ownership group is going to do, but it's definitely not looking that good right now, to say the least. So if this team is out early again, could we see a coaching change? Could arguably the best head coach in this franchise's history be out during the offseason? Could the Penguins be looking for a new head coach in the Sidney Crosby era after 7 full seasons of Mike being the head coach? Who knows, to say the least there. But yeah, bad vibes all around right now. There's nothing the Penguins are doing good. And maybe they flip a switch next week, maybe starting on Friday against the Blue Jackets, who knows. But right now, Jens, I don't see it. There's too many red flags for me. And, they look like, at least in terms of contenders, they're at the bottom of the barrel. That's how I see it. That, I think, will do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I appreciate all of you listening to this one. If you somehow made it to the end, I very much appreciate you. Even though I just basically ragged on the team for 26 minutes. I did forget, though, the power play again was abysmal tonight. The puck movement was They're overpassing like crap, and they're still not finishing their chances. There were just so many brain dead moments, I thought, from the Penguins on the man advantage, and it doesn't look like it's going to get fixed anytime soon. Brian Rust continues to also play like utter garbage. He's not hitting the net. He's not producing. I believe it's now his 7th or 8th game in a row where he hasn't even a point. That's not boding well for his chances to re-sign with the team next season. I don't want to see him play like that on the team if he's going to get a long-term extension. That's for sure, if the Penguins do want to go down that road. But again, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the show. I very much appreciate it. If it was, if it was all back and forth between different things, I apologize. I tried to be, as strict and concise as I can be. I'm just, I'm fed up with what I'm seeing, and I know you all are right now, right, as to, this team looks dead. And, prove me wrong. That's all I can say. Make me eat some crow at this point. But again, thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back with another episode on Wednesday and then Thursday. And of course on Friday, I believe I'm going to have Taylor Haas on from DK Pittsburgh Sports. And then the playoffs start, and we'll see what this team can do. So thank you all so much. I'll be back with you all for a fresh episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast on Wednesday.